So we had a big election yesterday, and it was the Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton show. Trump won Florida, Illinois, Missouri, and North Carolina. And the only state that he lost, at least as of right now, and some of the elections are super close, Trump's ahead, but, they're like counting the last votes here to try to figure out if somebody can pull a comeback. But as of right now, the only state that Trump lost is Ohio. And he lost that to John Kasich. John Kasich is the governor there. He was a small favorite going in, and he won by a fairly comfortable margin. But everywhere else, Donald Trump eviscerated people. So at this point, the question with Trump is, can he get the required number of delegates for the convention, or will it be contested? Because he's almost certainly got a lock on the plurality of delegates and of votes, but he still might fall short of the magic number. Now, Marco Rubio dropped out last night, and that means that his voters might switch to Cruz. They're more likely to switch to Cruz or Kasich, definitely not Trump. But is that enough to make Cruz overtake Trump? No, I highly, highly doubt that. It appears like it's going to be Donald Trump with a plurality of delegates moving forward, but will he have enough to hit that magic number? And with him losing Ohio, most of the articles I read say it looks like we're opening up the door here. It's much more likely that there's going to be a contested convention. So it's a shit show on the right, and it's still the Donald Trump show on the right. Now, on the Democratic side, it was a bloodbath. Hillary Clinton won Florida, as she was totally expected to do. We said for sure she'd win North Carolina and Florida. She won those, but she also won Illinois, Missouri, and Ohio. Now, Bernie not taking Illinois and Missouri hurts. That hurts a lot. And what also hurts is her margin of victory. I mean, she really cleaned his clock yesterday. It was somewhat close, you can say, in Missouri. In fact, it was very close in Missouri. But Missouri was supposed to be kind of like a shoo-in state for Bernie. It was, I had Missouri in the column for almost certainly Bernie yesterday. And I had Illinois. I thought Bernie would take Illinois. He didn't take either one. So that means Hillary swept. And it was basically worst case scenario for Bernie last night. Now, the thing is, Michigan threw off all of the predictions because it showed that the numbers were seemingly unreliable, and could have been for a variety of reasons. It could have been because the way they do the polling and how they call landlines, and that's biased in favor of old people, and old people are more in favor of Hillary Clinton, young people are more in favor of Bernie. But Bernie overcame a 21.4% deficit in the average of the polls in Michigan. So that made it, at least in my mind, that you have to factor that in moving forward. And so in states where Bernie's 5 points, maybe up to 10 points behind, that's not as indicative of him actually being 5 to 10 points behind. It maybe is indicative of him being 2 points behind or 1 point behind or maybe even tied. So when you factor all that stuff in, I thought for sure he'd get Missouri and Illinois. He didn't get either one of those again, and that does hurt him. So what does that mean going forward? Now, a lot of people are saying, well, that's it. It's 100% over. The math doesn't work. Let's drop out here, Bernie. What's going on? That's actually not true. So you shouldn't go that far because that's false. What he does need going forward, though, is basically to win every state and win it by a pretty wide margin with about 58% of the vote or more. So he's favored in the states going forward because of the demographic makeup and things of that nature, but not by that much. And I mean, let's face it, it's a tall order. So much later on, we still have California, we still have New York. If he does super well in the next 5 to 9 states, and then we get there, and he does well there, well, then he really does have a shot, and he's still in it. But I got to be accurate with you guys here, and I got to be honest with you guys. He would need to win about 58% of the vote in every state moving forward, which is a fucking tall order. Now, again, he's favored in those states, so there is a shot. But with Hillary's really strong performance last night, she overperformed or outperformed her polling numbers last night. That makes it so that he is in trouble and he is on the ropes. I've had him at 40% to win the election. That's what I had him at yesterday and before yesterday. Right now that dropped. I mean, that's now at about 30%. Because especially if he took Ohio yesterday, whew, man, would we have a awesome race going forward. But since he lost, definitely Missouri and Illinois, but also Ohio, what that shows you is Hillary is not just, absolutely dominating in the southern states, which she is, and it's by super wide margins. But she also, in some of the states where Bernie is supposed to have a theoretical advantage because of the demographic makeup and fewer African-American voters who Hillary is dominating in that demographic, he failed there, and she did really well there. And that shows that moving forward, that's also a possibility. So when we look at Michigan, the question that Nate Silver was asking and the question that others were asking is, hey, was this a fluke or is this something that's more indicative of what's going to happen going forward? I thought overcoming a 21-point deficit, that almost can't be a fluke. Like something's going on there. Something's wrong with the polling data and how they're polling, and apparently it's skewed on purpose or not in favor of Hillary Clinton. But it turns out that what's actually more likely today is that indeed it was a fluke, at least in the sense that when Nate Silver did his numbers, he actually had Michigan 99% for Hillary to win. But you know what that means, right? It means that literally 1 out of every 100 times, the other person is going to win. And I started thinking about, because I play poker, I play Texas Hold'em, I'm sure some of you people do too. And, you think about the different times where you were 96%, 98%, maybe even 99% going to the river, and then you get cracked on the river, and you lose. And you're like, I was a lock. There was literally one out in the deck, one card for the other person to win, and they hit that card. That's insane. But the thing is, it's really not all that insane, because it happens 1 out of every 100 times. So every once in a while it's going to happen, and he overcame that 21-point deficit. So he underperformed the polls last night. He lost even Missouri and Illinois, so it does hurt. Now, what I can tell you is the media narrative moving forward is going to be gigantic. And we've always said you can't rely on the media to be even just fair to Bernie. Like, you almost have to expect an anti-Bernie bias. But if they continue with that kind of, line of reasoning here, and if it's nonstop piling on from the different networks and from the nightly news and from all these pundits, then I think his chances drop even more, to be honest. Now, one individual network doesn't have much sway. Very few people even watch CNN anymore. But when you add them all together, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all the nightly news, you put them all together, that does have an effect. And the message that they might put out now is, it's totally over, drop the fuck out, it's over, 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 it's over. And if you get Democratic voters to really believe that, there's this phenomenon in politics called the bandwagon effect, where, people think, I guess we got to vote for our stronger candidate, and I guess we got to rally behind that person. And when one person gets a bigger lead, they tend to get an even bigger lead because people want to end up voting for the eventual winner. Now, maybe that's a little bit different for Bernie voters, because Bernie voters are, I would say, particularly well-educated on the issues. But even if that happens a little bit, even if there's a little bit of the bandwagon effect, Bernie cannot afford a little bit of the bandwagon effect right now, because he needs to turn it around, and he needs to turn it around immediately. Like I said, win about 58% of the vote in every state going forward. So I'm here to be honest with you guys. Now, you shouldn't be too distraught, because if/when it becomes impossible for him to win, my commentary will be that. My commentary will be, sorry, the math doesn't add up. Sorry. It doesn't matter how much you like Bernie Sanders. Math is math. We believe in numbers, being liberals. So it's just, he's done. Just like I did the same thing when it was Hillary Clinton versus Barack Obama the last time around. When it became mathematically impossible for Hillary Clinton to stay in the race, I said, no, sorry, but it's over. Like, the math is the math. What are you going to do? I will say the same thing if/when that's the case with Bernie, but that's not the case right now. Other people will try to pretend like that's the case. It's not the case. He still has a shot, but he has to win about 58% of the vote in all the states upcoming. They favor him right now, but you have to hope that the bandwagon effect doesn't suppress the vote enough for millennials or other people where they say, well, if he's got no shot anyway, I either won't vote or I'll go vote for Hillary. So that's the state of the race right now. I can't lie to you guys and say it was, a good night. It was the worst it could have possibly been for Bernie. But even with the worst it could have possibly been, there's still a shot, but there needs to be a giant voter turnout moving forward. You need millennials to get out and vote for him. And you need the media to not fucking pile on, because if they pile on about how he needs to drop out and how he can't win, even though he still can win, that can manifest that into reality. So now more than ever, the anti-Bernie Sanders media bias is critical, and it's crucial to what's going to happen. And if/when we get to the point that it appears to be a Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump general election, it pains me to even think about it. Like, I get depressed. I get a wave of depression when I think about that. I don't want that. You don't want that. Don't let that happen. Everybody in all the upcoming states, it's do or die. You have to go out hard. You have to go out strong for Bernie. If you don't, you know what we have to look forward to. Nothing.